Hello, today we are going to go over how to use the SUPRT-A and SUPRT-C tracking template that's available on our website, mygiprainfo.org/state opioid response. So this is just an optional tracking form that you can have just for your records to keep track of your client IDs when their assessment windows are coming due for the 6-month reassessment and the annual assessment, and whether or not you need to complete those assessments for the client, depending on when their closeout date is. So we already have a couple examples here on row 4 and 5. So we're just going to go through an example together, and I will zoom in just a little bit here so you can see better. So we're going to put our name under column A, which is for the staff person. So you'd input your name here. Then you're going to put in the SUPRT-A or C client ID. So we'll put in random ID for that. Then we're going to input the SUPRT-A baseline date, so when that was completed. You can also put in the GIPRA intake date if your client has an intake for GIPRA prior to September 1st of 2025 and they are still receiving services. So for this example, we'll put in a SUPRT-A baseline date for today, which is 11/6/2025. And you'll notice that that is automatically going to populate this 6-month reassessment window here. So we can see our 6-month reassessment will open on April 5th of 2026, and it will close on June 4th of 2026. So we have from April to June to complete that reassessment window. To complete that reassessment if they are still receiving services. All right, so in column D, that's going to be the SUPRT-C baseline status. So you'll see there's a drop-down menu here. So whether or not the client completed the SUPRT-C or agreed to complete the SUPRT-C, if they declined the SUPRT-C, or if it's not applicable. The only reason that this would be not applicable would be if they had a GIPRA intake prior to September 1st of 2025 and they're still receiving services. SUPRT-C is not required for those folks. So let's say in this example, they decline the SUPRT-C. So we're going to click declined. Now, if the client declines the SUPRT-C, you still need to complete the record management section. So for that, we are going to just put in the date that we complete the record management section since they declined. So we'll say for that, we did that on 11/7/2025. Okay. Now, let's say, for instance, 6 months later, they are still receiving services past this April 5th date here. So we are going to offer them the 6-month reassessment for the SUPRT-C, and we're also going to complete the 6-month reassessment for SUPRT-A. Okay, just make sure I'm on the right row here. Perfect. So we need to complete the SUPRT-A. So we'll click completed for that. And then we're going to input the date that that was completed. And again, it can be completed within this window of time here between April 5th of 2026 to June 4th of 2026. So let's say we complete that SUPRT-A reassessment on May 20th of 2026. Okay. Now let's say we offer the client to complete the 6-month reassessment for SUPRT-C, but they decline. So again, we're going to click decline, and we still need to complete the record management of SUPRT-C if they decline. So we're going to put in the date that we complete that record management section. So for that, we'll do, May 25th, 2026. All right, now, as we move over, you'll see we have our annual assessment windows here, and that's again going to auto-populate based off of the SUPRT-A baseline date. So our annual assessment window will be between October 7th of 2026 and December 6th of 2026. But let's say that our client was discharged from services, so they're going to receive a Super A closeout. Now, let's say they discharge from services before this window opens for the annual assessment. So let's say they're discharged on October 1st of 2026. So we're going to input that in there. And you'll see that it's automatically going to block out the cells for the annual assessment for Super A and Super C. Since the client had a Super A closeout prior to the window opening for the annual assessment, no other assessments are due for that client unless they begin a new episode of care. And again, as a reminder, if they return for services, that would start a new episode of care and you would do the Super A and C process all over again. So let's do another example quickly here. So again, we'll put in our name, we'll put in a client ID, we'll put in the baseline date. So let's say that is on 11/20/2025. All right, let's say they decide to complete the SUPRT-A-C. So we're going to put the date that they complete the SUPRT-A-C here. We'll do 11, do the same date for that in this example. Now you'll see it auto-populates the 6-month reassessment window. Now let's say that they're discharged from programming before the window opens for the 6-month reassessment. So we're going to scroll all the way over here to the Super A closeout date. And then what we're going to do is, and actually let me move this so you can see a little bit better. So let's do a closeout date of 3/1/2026. Now that's going to automatically black out the 6-month reassessment cells as well as the annual assessment. And again, that's because the Super A closeout was before the 6-month reassessment window. So no further assessments are required for this client unless they return for services, which starts a new episode of care and would start the Super A-C process over again. Let's do one more example where a client is going to do all of the assessments because they're still receiving services a year later. So again, we'll put in the client ID. Let's say they started on today's date. Let's say that they decide to complete the SUPRT-A-C. So we'll put the date that that was completed. Okay, and then let's say 6 months later, they're still receiving services when this window opens. So we have to complete the SUPRT-A 6-month reassessment. So we'll put completed for the status, and then we're going to put the date that that was completed. Let's say that was on 5/1/2026. Now we also have to offer the client the SUPRT-C 6-month reassessment. So we're going to put whether they completed or declined. And so let's say they declined. We have to still fill out the SUPRT-C record management section, which is just a few questions. And so we'll put the date that we complete that. So we'll do 5/1/2026 for that as well. Now it's a year later. They're still receiving services as of 10/7/2026. So we need to complete a SUPRT-A annual assessment. So we'll put completed for the status and the date that that was completed. So let's say it was on 10/25/2026. Now, because they're still receiving services, we have to offer the annual assessment for SUPRT-C. So let's say they decide to complete that. So we're going to put the date that that was completed. So let's say that will be 10/30/2026. Now let's say that they are discharged on 11/6/2026. And that would complete their record. So again, this is just for your own purposes for keeping track of your clients and when their reassessment and annual windows come due, whether they're applicable or not. So feel free to use this. If you have any questions on how to use this, please feel free to reach out to us at super@wayne.edu. And thank you very much.